All right, hi everybody. Welcome to RAMS 2019, the Design for Reliability track, which clearly is of great interest with the room being totally full and actually a standing room all across the back there. And design for reliability is a very big part of forwarding our discipline right now and focusing on it. And so I'm Adam Barrett. I'm the owner of Apex Ridge Reliability. Apex Ridge Reliability is an engineering reliability consulting firm. We have customers like Boeing, Keurig, Hyundai Motors, Amazon Robotics. We make sure their products work every time in the field. And I do this in two ways, and my talk today is going to be about the second way. The first way is we work with the engineering teams to make sure that they understand and implement the design for reliability tool set. The second is we work with leadership and the project team to make sure that they are creating a culture of reliability and programs focused around reliability so the company gets the maximum return on investment from that tool set. And that's one of the tools I want to talk with you about today. So the tool I'm going to talk about is a technique I developed called Program Risk Effects Analysis. And after I describe it today, you should be able to implement it when you go back to your office next week. It's a very straightforward principle, but it can have a very big impact. So before I go into it, though, I do want to tell you a story, and it is related. But I have two daughters. One is 11, the other is now 13. And we do have a discipline issue with the 13-year-old daughter. But it's not what you'd expect. She won't stop doing her homework at night. She will stay up very late at night doing her homework. And this is fantastic. And she gets all straight A pluses, high honors, certificate from the principal each year for A pluses across the board. So she is really doing it. But she just enjoys doing it, enjoys taking her time. She gets online with her friends and they kind of do social groups. Now they can do social groups without having to be in the same room. But my concern is that her health, not getting enough sleep. She's 13, she's growing. This kid gets up at 5:30 in the morning for school every day. Her school starts at 7, and a 13-year-old girl needs a lot of time to get ready. But I don't want her going on short sleep. So what we've set up as discipline, as a way to address it, is at 8 o'clock, that's when homework's done and you get ready for bed. Now, in principle, that's what should occur. But what actually occurs is 8 o'clock is the point in time when we begin our negotiations for when she'll actually stop doing her homework, right? So at 7:30, I'm kind of like, all right, how's it going? I got a little bit more to do. I'm like, all right, good. 8 o'clock, I talk with her. I'm like, so are we done? She's like, well, I got this one other thing to finish. And then we start making our cases. I say, well, when is it due? And if she says it's 2 days from now, then I say, okay, well, maybe we stop and we don't do it. And, we try to find time to work on it more tomorrow. Or she might say, it's due tomorrow. I have to get it done. This is the big final project. And then I'm like, okay, well, let's figure out how much more time, half an hour, an hour. My favorite one is after she did all her other homework, her math stuff and everything, she had this art project she had to finish. It was a clay project, which she had finished. It was this panda bear and bamboo shoots and this whole amazing thing. And I was like, wow, you're done. She's like, no, we have to use the oven as a kiln now for the next 45 minutes and to harden it, and then I'm going to paint it. I was like, it's going to be a long night. So now, the reason why I bring this story up is because there's a lot of parallels between this and the product development process and design freezes. As we know with design freezes, which there's a couple in programs, they are commonly like specification freeze, concept freeze, design freeze, and tool freeze. And design freeze is obviously the one that's most important to us in the reliability discipline. But just like with the homework, they aren't really the points where you stop designing. I've never actually seen that, and I know you haven't either. It's when the negotiations start, right? It's exactly the same. We get up to the design freeze, and everybody starts making their cases as to why we have to abide by the freeze because of the program, time to market, getting this technology out. And then on the other side, we start talking about the risks, and we need to have more time to finish testing. You need to implement these solutions, and the negotiations go on and on. Now, that's fine, but the big problem is the negotiations are not quantitative at all. They're emotional, really. So now picture the parent, right, the leader above that's going to make the decision, and two kids are making their case. In the end, it becomes almost an emotional decision, right? One person's saying the sky's going to fall if we don't do this, and the other person is saying if we don't get out time to market on time, this is going to happen, and they have to make some kind of decision. It's binary, okay, yes or no, and we go. So I wanted to try to find a way to improve on this. Well, the first thing to do is to address, on the reliability side, we are unreasonable. We can be unreasonable because we always have the philosophy that there's no small change. I mean, we've all been told that when we were learning reliability. There's no small change. If you change a screw, the airplane will crash, because it wasn't part of what we validated. But that's not true. That's a little bit hyperbolic. And then on the project management side, there's always this kind of pencils down, the test is over, very authoritative, it's not negotiable. And it's taking those two stances is not allowing anybody to really find out what the real balance is between them. So the first thing is to acknowledge that what really exists is a chill phase. Why don't we call it a chill phase as things slowly firm up? Because there really should be a gradient of difficulty of changing the schedule and the freeze point as you get closer to it. And so you effectively have to make a stronger quantitative value justifying that change as you get closer. What if we could do that? What if we could do that simply? And you had this designated period where you've set up times to have input to help decide if it's justified to adjust the schedule. So a chill phase, not just having formal freeze points. So on the reliability side, our objective with reliability testing is to measure or to improve the reliability of the product, right? The tests usually take either one or the other or a blend of those as their objective. And so we're looking for statistical information, obviously. And this can be a bit open-ended. You want to put into a schedule how long a test is going to take. Well, you need to have failures for your data set. That's kind of difficult to just say, oh, a test is only going to take X long. Not to mention a test occurring and having a failure and using it as design input the way it's supposed to be, and then that new design getting put back into test. That could be a complete restart. So getting this into the schedule in advance and saying definitively it's going to be this long as this program phase is very difficult. I mean, take a look at one of the most common questions we get. When is this going to wear out? Right? We're at the end of the bathtub curve. And a wear-out test is, a lot of times we're able to characterize it with an accelerated life test, right? So you have a product that may be supposed to last 5 years. And we come up with a test where that could be demonstrated in a few weeks. We find an acceleration model that works. And the project managers want to say, okay, when you demonstrate the 5 years, we can finish the test. Now, anybody who knows anything about a bell curve knows that if you had the regular nominal product and you stopped then, that means technically 50% of the products are going to fail before that point in time, before the 5 years. That's not the answer you want. That's not of any value. We need to run till they all fail. So then they say, when are they all going to fail? If I knew when they all were going to fail, I wouldn't have to do the test. That's the whole point of the test. That is literally the only output that comes out of the test is when they failed. So what I'm looking for is to create a distribution where I find the mean value, the standard deviation, and what I'm hoping for is that just the last little part of that tail crosses over into that 5 years, like maybe 2%. I only want a 2% wear out contribution to my failure rate. So here I am, actually they're asking me to budget time, and I'm really saying I don't know. And that's not even including if there are any changes. So I thought about this, and I thought about how we always are doing the same process over and over again. But it's not a process. Why don't we make something that helps make this negotiation, work? And by the way, I haven't figured out how to apply this at home yet with my daughter, but maybe I'll find a way to adapt it. But I look to DFMIAs, which is a tool that a lot of people don't like, but I really like. I think it is tremendously powerful if used correctly. And at the end of the day, a DFMIA is really a project management tool, right? Because it's telling you where to put resource based on risk. But this is all based around the design, right? A design FMIA. So let's take a look about how it works a little bit, some of the key elements, and then we'll see how we can adapt them. Well, the first thing is the entire team is involved. So now instead of having a single point of negotiations, the team has been having input right from the very beginning and at a really intense resolution. In a design FMIA, you have your line items. Each is a failure mode and an effect of the failure, and you're ranking them quantitatively by 3 scoring methods: the severity, the likelihood of occurrence, and the detectability. You multiply them together, and you get your risk priority number, right? And this risk priority number, then, when you sort the line items by it, you now know which are the greatest threat to the design not working as intended. So the team has already had the input. So when you come up to the end and say, this is very critical, there's no debate left to be had. The people who would have debated you have already had their input earlier on. You just know that this needs to be addressed. So you've taken what would have been historically an reliability engineer arguing this is high risk, and then somebody removed from it saying, well, they have their concerns, and now that they've brought it to a point in the program when they can talk about it, and in advance give it a quantitative ranking that now can be used to make decisions. So what about a program risk effects analysis, PREA? And I created this technique and I've used it several times now, and it's really amazing how it takes this process and just kind of brings it into more of a collaboration to getting to figuring out where you need to be. And you don't just have those two camps standing in their relatively unreasonable positions, and it's because they're going into it defensively. They've had the battle before. Everybody has to hunker down, get ready, and for the fight. So what if you had the chilling phase and you gave each team effectively a way to quantitatively have a gradient for their side of it. So you have one that's the impact to product reliability, and the second that's the impact to the program goals. And this is something that you've created ranking values for, and you're comparing as you're coming up to that freeze. So there's 4 ranking factors. 2 of them are associated to the impact to the product reliability, and the other 2 are associated to the impact to the program goals. The impact to product reliability, the first one is I call the W, so it's the warranty, although it doesn't have to be warranty. It's basically the expense of the failure, and this could be loss of life. I mean, it could, whatever you choose to have it be, but it's effectively a direct outcome of the product failing. And you can create whatever resolution you like and whatever definitions you like. Same thing with the DFMEA, where you sit down with the team in advance and you say, okay, what resolution do we need for the severity table? And what are the definitions we want to put in here so we're consistent when we rank? Exact same thing. So 1 would be, everything goes great, you're below target warranty cost. 5 is you're above the target warranty cost. And 3 is things have gone well. So the second is a sales, and sales from reliability. So how much reliability contributes to sales? And if you've listened to some of my other talks and principles, I think that, there's kind of really commonly 4 product factors that are part of what's negotiating for resource in the product program. So it's like features, reliability, cost point, time to market. So this is the reliability contribution to that, to the success of gaining and holding the market share. And you might have one where the product works so well from a reliability standpoint, it gets the bulletproof label. And then you might have 5 where there's a 20% below the target market goal because of reliability issues. So now if we go to the program goals, we have the first, which is the time to market, so how time to market impacts sales. And for 1, it would be on time. For 5, maybe it's 1 year plus delay is what you consider, very serious. And then you have your features, so the impact of sales in developing the new features that the program is looking to introduce as new technology for this product. So 1 would be all planned features get included. 2 might be reduced functionality in some features, and a 5 might be you're missing some really fundamental key features. So here we are now with a scoring system, taking what historically would have kind of been a little bit, or almost a little bit more abstract, and some do have quantitative points, but putting them to a scale that can be compared with each other. So they effectively have a conversion to come together to be put in one equation. So what would that equation be? Now again, you want to keep it simple, just like in a DFMEA. A DFMEA, you just take the 3 ranking factors and you simply multiply them together, and that's your risk priority number. Very straightforward. So I did the same thing here, but I realized where that is just comparing, they're all comparing within the same population, I'm looking to compare 2 factors to help make a decision. So it's simply a matter of getting the difference between the 2. So it's on the reliability side, it's the warranty times the sales minus the time to market times the features, and that's your balance factor. So if the number is negative, the freeze should be held. If the number is positive, the freeze should be flexible. And of course, the greater the magnitude of that number, the more it is critical to address, to consider. So let's say that we took, we had a warranty of 3, sales affecting reliability of 4, time to market affecting sales of 1, features affecting sales of 3. That would be a balance factor of +9. So the freeze gate in this case should be adjusted to accommodate the design failure mode mitigation. But again, the great thing is when that statement is made, the teams had input to it already. So let's take it to an actual real-life example. So a tremendous change in technology right now that we're all experiencing is automated driving, right? Car companies are having to now, across the board, begin to incorporate this into their models. You will not be a car company come 20 years from now if you do not have autonomous vehicles. You also will not be a car company 20 years from now if you develop autonomous features that kill people. It's not gonna, it would only take a few news stories about you having the least reliable one there to be taken out. So SAE has created a standard for automation levels. 0 is no automation, which is what we've historically had, and there's 5 levels. And 0 does include things like first level, you have adaptive cruise control, so that's looking outside to make a decision on adjusting the speed. Level 2 is partial automation. That's coordinated adaptive control, so that's like braking and steering coordinated. This is kind of, lane keeping technology. Then the big jump. True automated driving is levels 3, 4, and 5, and this is what we're just starting to see now. 3, conditional, which is like the Teslas, and this is a vehicle can manage itself in most situations. The driver still has to be able to be a part of it if the automated system wants to hand it over. 4 is high automation, where the vehicle can effectively handle itself in all situations, but there are still driver controls if needed. 5 is a car with no steering wheel or controls. So all the manufacturers right now are trying to make that big jump. So what if we had a situation where they're trying to make a decision regarding a program? They've found an issue like the lane location has a 0.01 chance of making an error in snowy conditions. The visual system has an issue. So the risk is the control will be handed to the driver urgently. The duration until the driver takes control may be enough for a distracted driver to have an incident. So under the warranty, we came up with a failure expense, but this case is not warranted. The failure expense is the accident, loss of life, and there will be costs associated to that, of course, in addition to the ethical side. And we've made the scale here, and so we've chosen 4. 3 is a driver has to take unexpected control of vehicle, unlikely to have a crash. 5 is very likely to have a crash. So 4 seem to fit this. Then on how reliability will affect sales, it got a solid 3, meaning we probably end up with being 30% below market share. Customers are losing trust in the brand. Okay, so that's the design reliability side. What are the program people doing on their side? So we're trying to get to that level 3 feature, which is the next generation. This is the vehicle can manage itself in most situations. This is that big jump, right? This is where everybody's trying to get to next. So on the time to market impact on sales, it got a 2. As far as what it would take to potentially correct this issue, we're speculating with regard to the extension of the research and development that would have to be done and testing that's completed again. And then 4 is given for the impact of sales from the features. So 3 on our scale was sales impact due to limited feature availability, and 5 is missing all new features and product release, so it's no longer a competitive vehicle. So they're very clearly here, if we don't get this right, and it's 100% reliable but doesn't have this feature, we're not making that jump to the next level of automation, we're going to have a hard time staying in the market. So putting these together, we end up with a balance factor of +4. So the freeze gate should be adjusted to accommodate a design failure mode mitigation because it's a positive number. So again, now we're having this discussion again as we're approaching the freeze, but the teams have had a chance to quantitatively put information in. So this argument is very different because it's hard to argue that it's not important when you've had input that has resulted in this ranking, and that's where the discussion is going to happen. And the discussion has happened through that chill phase. It's not just all of a sudden happening at the actual freeze. There's another factor of this. This is very unfortunately a photograph of the Columbia Space Shuttle on re-entry on February 1st, 2003. And when this occurred, I was very interested in looking at the analysis of what happened. And there's something that really stuck with me and is really chilling when I read it. And so it was its 28th mission, and what caused the failure was a piece of foam insulation broke off from the Space Shuttle external tank and struck a left wing of the orbiter. So this is happening during takeoff. So then, now the wing no longer has the correct thermal protection for reentry. This is the part that's chilling. A few previous shuttle launches had seen damage ranging from minor to nearly catastrophic from foam shedding. 28 missions. This was something that they'd come to the point of like, yeah, it happens. So at some point early in the program, whether the design phase or the actual launching program, I'm sure a lot of engineers said, hey guys, this is serious. This foam can come off and it can strike the heat shielding system, and we need to figure out something else to do. And they said, how long does it take to redesign the foam system? They're like, I don't know, it's going to be huge to figure out how to change the foam system, the insulation. And at some point, somebody made a decision, you know what, this just has to go forward. You guys are always saying everything is life or death. We just got to go forward. We have to do this. And once that happened, it was binary, right? They could refer back to that decision every time. Every time they came back and said, hey guys, this could happen. Next time on reentry, this thing could burn up. And they said, well, it didn't happen last time. You said last time it was going to happen, and it didn't happen. So you're just continuously rolling the dice, hoping your numbers don't come up. And if you roll enough times, 28 times, it will. So the way a tool like this can help is it stops it from being binary, this way or that way. It keeps the assessment of the risk on the table. What if instead, each time they discussed this, they had a quantitative method like this that gave a scale of how risky it was? There's a couple things. One, you're continuing to discuss it by going back and revisiting it the way you do with a DFMEA. And the other is you might adjust your scoring based on events that happened, such as, hey, when it came back last time, those tiles were missing and we saw burn marks. That changes the scoring on one of the tables. So this tool, in addition to helping within the program, also helps ensure that these topics and these risks stay quantitative and stay within the decision-making process. So it's kind of an interesting way to quantitatively take these types of negotiations that happen not only in product design, but maybe happens in other areas. And it can help with everything from planning and designing new features and trying to assess how well they're performing in your reliability testing to if they should affect how the program's structuring. Not to mention also looking backwards and redoing rankings and constantly updating these based on observed performance. Thank you very much. I'm interested in your questions.
Some questions? No?
I just have one. The balancing factor, is that, the difference like 1629 or the automobile deal like RPM and stuff like that, those are kind of like standardized risk factors that a larger body of people that would look into up front, I guess. Is this balancing factor, is that in the standard, or is that something proposed? How much buy-in is there into that? Have the buy-in up front rather than when things become emotional and drop this.
Yep. So the question is, with DFMEAs and you have risk priority numbers, that's a standard. You can refer to a standard and see that methodology, and people have agreed to it. With this idea, with the PREA and the balancing factor, that's something that has not been put in a standard yet. This is a new technique. This is a technique that I developed and have begun to use with customers. And with regard to effectively what's being implied is the credibility, whether or not it's in a standard. The credibility should come from the fact that the team's coming together in advance and constructing it themselves, right? The RPN number doesn't really, when you really think about the RPN number, doesn't really mean anything because on its own, because it's entirely standing on those tables that the team created in the beginning. The scoring factors are entirely based on their definitions. It's theirs. It's their RPN number. Same thing with the balance factor. The balance factor is their number that comes from the tables and scoring levels that they created. So, in effect, if they disagree with the balance factor as a metric, that should come up in the creation of it. And either they should say, hey, this whole idea doesn't work, let's not do it, and then you definitely shouldn't do it if everybody doesn't believe in it, because the whole point is to resolve conflict by trying to hash out the details, or you adjust the tables until everybody is satisfied.
I'll just
from here. I just wanted to mention, so I know you identify these risks, so a lot of companies, you know, like you just mentioned with the Columbia Space Shuttle, they knew about it, and they still went ahead. You can look at a lot of things that happen in industry where they knew about it and went ahead. So even if you had this tool, there's no guarantee that, you know, when you look at those emotional decisions, that let's say schedule is most important, and they're going to go forward anyway. And they say, we know the risk, thank you very much, we're moving forward. So I'm not sure that you really solved that decision-making process by issuing this tool, because in some ways we've had other tools that show, in this case you mentioned FMEAs, but still, like I said, maybe something bigger, more with the culture with the company, the fact that they think schedule is more important, and they've even chosen to go with those risks, and then we see the results later. It's happened, it hasn't stopped, it continues to happen. So what makes you think this is really going to make a difference? That same kind of thing.
Okay, so the question was, you know, there are risk tools out there. So, you know, and we still see these incidents happen. So what's to say that this tool is just simply going to stop it, and why would this one be any different? Well, this is definitely not going to save the day and everybody implements this tool and everything goes perfect. What you're looking for is to reduce the number of events that have happened. So the question is, you have things like Columbia and other issues that have happened, and there are risk tools that have been used in that program. What issues did not occur from the fact that these tools exist? And maybe this one added will reduce some others. And the way I would see it helping in that situation is that, first of all, I don't know within the discussion how technical they were able to compare. I'm looking to bridge the gap because the engineers can talk in statistics with each other, no likelihood of issue. But how do you compare that to the people arguing the other side on the program side? It's going to be later to market. It's going to cause this kind of a PR problem. Like, there's no connection mathematically to them, right? The person trying to decide is hearing, I have a .001 blah, 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 right? And on this side, they're hearing, if we don't launch, we're not getting funding for next year if we don't launch this March. And how do you, there's nothing to connect it. What if you could put some of those in the tables, translate them, and try to create a comparative way, is what I'm hoping comes of this. And in that situation, it may have made no difference. But then there's a secondary factor that it does stop it from being a binary decision that can be referred to in the past, and there are tables. And what you could have done is then the engineers could have come back and said, hey, guess what? We've actually seen tiles taken off by the foam falling. We need to change where we put on that scale. Look at how much it changes this. It at least, the discussion happens again.
I know where there's a good book on that, by the way. I'm going to get another workshop on Thursday and Friday. I won't point the name.
I guess we'll find out.
Adam, you mentioned DFMEAs and RPMs. The PDA, it's the General Manufacturing Association, they actually, instead of RPMs, they use AP, action priority numbers, which are pretty heavily based on severity. Do you think it's a better approach to assess risk using DFMEA?
So assessing risk to the design, the impact from the design, you're saying that there's other systems that put a higher weighting on severity?
That's what PDA does.
Yeah. Well, what I think is important, and so important about that, is the fact that people aren't just taking them out of standards, they're adapting them to their process. Because that's why DFMEAs get such a bad name, is that people execute them per the standard, and it's very disconnected from what they believe is meaningful, what they're going to use to make decisions later. So it's a paper exercise at that point, so you can check off that you did it, if at the end the results aren't going to guide your decisions. And they don't guide your decisions because you didn't set up the scaling. So if within a specific team, they're like, you know what, likelihood of occurrence isn't that big a deal, detectability isn't that big a deal, we care about is severity, period. You know, we kill one person and we're done. Then it should have a much higher weighting. You know, you should adjust it to do that. And that's, I'm glad you said that, because that's what's so important. And then it'll stay connected to the program.
Okay, thank you, folks.
Thank you.